What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am your host, Michelle Berman-Mikel, and I have such a fun interview in front of me today. And I just want to start by saying that this gentleman and I got connected through a very fun mutual friend, Renee Rodriguez, who, for my audience, you guys all know this by now, but Renee actually wrote the foreword to the Black Line that is very soon to be in all of your hands. But I'm super pumped about this episode because I just feel like we were meant to know each other personally. That's how I feel. But if you guys are not familiar with this gentleman, his name is Jerrid Sebesta, and he's best known as a speaker, author, and creator of Life Undeferred. But really, he is a former weather guy turned breakthrough maker, if you ask me, right? So, Jerrid, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Excited as well. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I think we're going to have a good time, and I think we're going to really serve on a silver platter, if you will, some not just good information, but I think some solutions to some problems that a lot of people are probably having right now. And so before we jump into all of this, I want your life story in like 5 minutes. So
Sure.
Can you tell everybody, who is Jerrid? Why are you on this show? And ultimately, just like, why should we know you?
Holy cow, that's a big question. Let's dive it. Now, I'm probably most known for being a TV weatherman for 12 years. That's how I'm known around Minnesota. By the way, Renee and myself are both fellow Minnesotans, so that's part of the connection and reason why I know Renee. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of just a nerdy, tall kid from Southwest Minnesota that loves earth science. And when I took it as a major, I realized once I graduated, I did play college basketball, by the way, so I was more interested in playing basketball than my schooling. But once I graduated, it was like, where do you want to take this? I thought I was going to take it down the road of maybe working at a weather service or something like that. I realized very quickly that was for the really, really, really smart people. I was not that person. But my skills are all soft. I joke, but yet it's not a joke. I've never made money unless it involved talking. And so I decided to take it the TV route, made a horrible resume tape back in the year 2000. That's how old I am. And sent VHS tapes. Again, that's how old I am. Yes, this is true. VHS tapes to all these small market TV stations across the Midwest, and got my first job in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Met my future wife there, moved to Phoenix, Arizona, went bigger market, and then got back to my home state at a station called KARE 11, which is a top-rated station, kind of a very iconic station back in Minnesota, and worked there for 4 years. Essentially left that career at the height of my stock prices, so to speak, in 2014. Kind of took a lot of people off guard, even some of my family off guard. Fell, so to speak, into the financial world. Was not a financial advisor, but I was more of a PR business developer guy, creating content, creating media to help bridge the gap between that company and our audience, and help grow that company. And essentially left that full-time job a year ago, and now do this full-time, speaking, teaching, coaching. Wrote a book last year. And, I'm 46 years old, got 4 kids, and I feel like I'm in the most alignment that I've ever been in my life. And in some respects, in fact, many respects, I feel like I'm just kind of getting started. Like this is the game now. And it's a really scary journey being a business owner, as you know, but also a really exciting journey. And I'm past the point of no return. I couldn't go back, knowing and experiencing what I've experienced now.
Well, I think the freedom and joy of it, right? Of, hey, I did that and I'm doing it now. And I think there's something really special about that for sure. And very similar to you, those who know me know I actually have an undergrad degree in broadcast journalism, thinking I was going to go be Aaron Andrews. And, you and I could certainly talk more about that and why that was probably a good thing I didn't. But I do want to talk about something because in a lot of the research I did about you, there was this one thing that just kind of always kept coming up. And part of it is you talk about the someday trap in business a lot. And in your book, Life Undeferred, you talk about challenges that people need to overcome so that they stop waiting for this someday thing. And I think the story you just told is there's always someday for us to do this eventually, right? But why is it not today? And you just left an amazing career at the top of your game, if you will, in the weather world. And then you go into another company and you're probably at the top of your game and decide, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. But why, right? From your perspective, what was the I don't want to wait feeling you had? And then just like talk us through the ultimate decision.
Absolutely. So I didn't know how to articulate it at the time I left my TV career back in 2014, but it was an alignment issue. I love that word, alignment. I really think that is where we find who we are. If we really get radically clear and have the courage to look inside, and then also take steps to make sure that our life is aligned. When I got into my financial career, it's great, and there's no disrespect to any of the careers of people I've worked for. They've all been phenomenal. The only thing is that I evolved, I grew. And it really was probably the combination of a little bit of a midlife crisis back in 2020 and 2022. Obviously, COVID, the pandemic, really shook people up. It really made them reanalyze their lives in a lot of ways. My childhood, and I'm not blaming my childhood, but because of how I was raised, I always lived out of lack, fear, and scarcity. I was always playing defense, trying to stay away from uncertainty, keep life as simple and as risk averse as I possibly could. And that worked for many, many years. I have a very strong work ethic like you. I was an athlete like you currently are. I'm not anymore. But that was all done out of just this incessant need to be successful as kind of a defense mechanism to try to calm all the chaos that I was kind of raised in. And I kind of got to the end of myself, and there was a very defined moment on January the 1st, 2022. I was on a walk with my wife, not far from where I'm recording this, and I just kind of had enough. And it was kind of my flagpole moment where I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done playing defense. I'm going to start co-creating my future. I'm going to start creating the life that I want. Something happens when you turn 40. You're not there yet. You have many, many years left. But it's kind of cliche, but you really start realizing you only have a finite amount of time left on planet Earth. And I was watching the years kind of fly by quickly. And every year I'm like, it just looks the same. It just looks the same. And that started to really, really haunt me. And that's what caused me to then say, you know what, I'm going to do things to get out ahead of my life. I'm going to stop waiting for someday. And I'm going to start diligently finding alignment and really stepping into who I am. That's kind of the first side of the coin. The other side, to your point, people fall into this trap. I talk about breakthrough. That's really, at the end of the day, I'm trying to help people create breakthrough. Why do people get stuck? They get stuck because they think that there's something that they're going to experience, feel, they're going to have some epiphany, they're going to get a dream tonight, they're going to wake up feeling a certain way that will validate their experience. It will make them feel whole. And if that's the game you're going to play, you will be waiting a very long time. And so if I have to look back, that was such a pivotal moment, that decision I made 3.5 years ago, because that was when I decided that I was going to be the co-creator of my future. I was going to start diligently walking into that. And that may not sound like a big deal to you. That was a big deal to me, because for 43 years, I thought I didn't have a choice. I didn't have autonomy. I didn't have freedom. I was just a byproduct of my life. I was just going to try hard, do the right thing, and hope for the best. And there's nothing wrong with that mentality, but there's a better way. And since then, the way that I look at my future, the way that I look at business, finances, growth, expansion, breakthrough, and thus what I'm even doing right now and the conversation we're having is completely different. And it's so much fun and exciting. The subtitle of my book is like, How to Discover the Bold, Exciting Life. Life should be bold and exciting, not difficult free, not challenge free. But there should be something to your life that gets you excited. The people that are attracted to my message, they come to me and I'm like, they're not failing, but they're far from a 10 out of 10 too. They've probably been working a job for 10, 20 years, making good money, doing the thing, air quotes, running their life by the template where you do this and you save for retirement, and it's unfulfilling. And they're really, they're bored. And so how do we teach people to get out of this someday trap and say, you know what, now is the time. Let's start a new way of looking at my life, taking action that puts me in alignment. And when people do that, what I've seen in my own life, your life goes on fire. You see explosive growth and you start really feeling like yourself. You know what I mean? And just one more thing to that. I said to my wife last week, I forgot what it felt like to be out of alignment. Again, no disrespect to my previous employers, but I remember those days where it's like I'm coming home from work and I feel antsy, like almost I have like a visceral feeling in my body that like, oh my gosh, this isn't me. And there's nothing worse than having to show up in your life as a false you.
Yeah.
And as scary as business is with 4 kids and a 1-income family, it's scary. I have my own, I have new fears. But you know what? I don't worry about that anymore because I know what I'm doing is the most impactful, aligned thing and way of life than I've ever experienced in my life thus far. So again, a long-winded answer to your question. Yes, the someday trap is a real thing and we have to break that.
Well, I mean, I just have to say this because my brain is going into story mode. But, I am similar story in a different way, though. Like, I grew up in, dad was a bank sealer for 40 years, very high profile career. My mom was a paralegal and attorney assistant for 25, 30 years, retired at 45 because of my swimming career. My sister is a very high power chemistry teacher, AP bio, whole thing, runs the whole state. Like, very impactful individuals in all of their respective fields. And I remember graduating from college and my dad was like, well, you should go to law school. Like, you would be amazing in law school, right? So I ended up getting into UNLV law and I get the, a certificate of approval, whatever, the stupid letter in the mail. And I'm just like, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. Right. And it was kind of like the opposite where it was like, oh, I could go down this safe little path over here because that's what everyone else wants me to do. And I'm just like, no. So I'm the bulldog personality where it's like, oh, you said I shouldn't do that, so that's exactly what I'm going to go do. And now, rightfully or wrongfully so, right, I think it creates its own other problems. And I definitely will say, like, as someone who's been in business as a solopreneur for 11 years, the scariness aspect of it never goes away, at least from my perspective. It really doesn't, because there's always a new challenge, there's always a new problem, there's always a new barrier that you have to get through. So it doesn't ever go away, but I truly believe if you wake up every day and you're saying, I have, like, look at the freedom of my life, right? Like, my husband and I were talking before we jumped on this episode together, having lunch together, and we're like, we should just go on a date next week in the middle of the day. You want to do that? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, because he works from home and I work from home. And so, like, creating your life so that matters and that can happen is what brings me joy. So just to hear you say, like, are you out of alignment or are you not? Like, it just made me realize, now that checks out why I didn't want to do all of those things back in the day and why I have created this life that I literally live. I want to pick my son up from school. I want to drop him off,
If you start getting in alignment, everybody, you and Michelle and everybody listening to this, you get into alignment, you'll get to a point where there's like a point of no return. Like, I couldn't go back to that old life. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. We should be an unrecognizable human being from year to year to year. It shouldn't be play repeat, right? And one thing I want to mention to the whole idea of not letting the fear go away. I fully understand that because I've been in business now and rub shoulders with business owners, and they say it never goes away. Here's the thing. It shouldn't. You don't want it to go away. I'm sure there's people listening right now that are fearful of an uncertain future of business, that may or the markets are saying one thing or whatever that looks like and trying to grow and expand it, and it feels scary. Yeah. I have really changed my tune. For 43 years, whenever I felt fear, I would do everything I could to create the most safety possible. And as I did that, I was playing smaller and smaller. I was going to play as small as I can to counteract the fear. Does that make sense? And now it's like when I feel that fear and I don't do it perfectly, but I do it a heck of a lot better than I did in the past, I take that as a badge of honor because this is what is necessary for me to evolve to then receive the benefits of the growth that I am going to experience. So if you're in business or if you're breathing air, you should be growing and expanding. Okay. So how do you get to the next level? Just expect it to happen? It doesn't just happen. So the way that it happens is through facing our fears. It's not fighting our fears, it's facing them. It's reframing them into belief and certainty and trust and surrender. And for me, when I experience those feelings of fear in my business and my life, again, I'm in the middle of the country, like I'm in the middle, literally kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I got to tell you, 3 o'clock in the morning, it can feel terrifying doing what we're doing, facing what we face in business where there is no guarantees. And I've learned, like, in those moments when it's the hardest, that's when it means the most. If I can reframe those into certainty, belief, faith, surrender, man, it opens the door then to let those opportunities and those waves of growth and expansion to come in. So again, just a little commentary to what you said. That's good. That's a good
Yeah, I
thing.
mean, I
Feeling
think
a little fear,
surrender,
good.
you said the word surrender, and I was thinking it when you were talking, and then you actually said the word, and I'm like, yes. And I think, as a woman of faith, and I know you being a man of faith, I think the number one word in my life in the last several years has truly been surrender, because I think sometimes we try to orient our life so much and plan every step of every day to the, I mean, I have OCD, a minor form. My husband would say it's a major form, but I think it's a minor form. I just don't like dishes in the sink before we go to bed. That's all it is. And I like a clean kitchen to wake up to in the morning when I have a cup of coffee. It's kind of simple. But the whole thing for me, especially because I didn't even get baptized until I was 26. I don't know if you and I talked about that, but not getting baptized until 26, not really finding God truly and having a relationship with God until 30, and I'm now 35. Right, over the last few years, especially in business, especially with my market primarily being the mortgage and real estate space, and what has happened in the last few years for the mortgage and real estate professionals that were hiring me in the first place, there came this point in my career where it was like, I could go find other types of businesses to support, and I could fully disassociate from the mortgage and real estate space because, hey, the clients are chilling out on spending money. But instead I was like, no, God gave me a voice. He gave me a purpose. He gave me a path in front of these people for a reason. Why? I don't know, right? But all I know is that I am on this path, and I was put right here by design. And there's something about me and something about the people in this space that need what I have to say. And fully surrendering that meant like waking up in the morning and being like, you know what? Worry. What does God say about worry? We can't carry it with us. We might as well give it to him because his yoke is light. Right? Or his burden is light and his yoke is not heavy. And I think part of it is that, right? In business, that's our only option, is to say, I'm doing everything I know I should be doing. Therefore, the rest of it is a full surrender to not me.
That's why people that are in business, their faith will grow up. Their faith will go up exponentially. And I've experienced that in my own life, because you have to. You have to surrender. If you're going to be a business and not be surrendered, it's going to be real rough. Let me pose a question to you on your own show. I'm just I apologize for doing this, but
Okay.
I said something recently. I was like, I think our lives are more choreographed than we probably believe, but at the same time, we have a lot more choice and a lot more freedom to choose our destiny than we probably are led to believe as well. Where do those where do they mesh? You know what I mean? Like, because it's not all us, but yet I don't subscribe to the faith camp. It's like, it's all up to God. I'm just going to sit here and just, think kumbaya every day. And, it's going to show up, because I don't believe that that's true either. You know what I'm saying? Like, where have you found that perfect mix in business?
I think it's and I want your feedback in your answer too. This is my show, Jerrid. You're not supposed to be asking me a question.
Sorry.
I do like it. I don't know if there's a couple of podcasts I listen to, and this is like how they banter, and it's like the funnest podcast to listen to, and they're all like 5 hours long. Ours will not be 5 hours, but still, they're the best to listen to. But to answer your question, I wake up every morning and I read the Bible in the morning. I'm in the middle of like a Bible study 80-day thing in the Bible app, and one of the things for me that I'm learning and reading and trying to understand is he's not telling us not to make decisions every day, right? He's not telling us that we're just put on this planet to sit back and wait for a divine intervention to come and drop down in front of me and be like, here's the path to follow. But he is telling us that there are things that we will pay attention, or that we should pay attention to, that will be signs that will lead us in the direction that he wants us to go, right? Now, I'll tell you, I subscribe to if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, intuition. And as a business owner, I have made decisions over the last, call it 10 years, where I was like, you know what, they're really nice, I'm going to give them a shot, but my intuition, I knew for sure the answer should have been no. And even just a couple of months ago, I made a decision like that I didn't need to make. It was money I didn't need to spend, but I put blind faith into something that I thought, hey, this is kind of the next step for my career, especially with the book coming out. But after I made the decision, I woke up the next morning in like the buyer's remorse concept. And to me, that's the Holy Spirit telling me, hey, you were already on the path that you needed to be on. Why did you try to reorient? You don't need that, right? And so I think for me, it's just listening to the Holy Spirit side of it and like slowing down and allowing it to show where it's going to show, because it will. If you open your heart to being able to receive it, it will show.
I mean, surrender, belief, faith, all those things come into play where I'm thinking about the future. I'm not dwelling on it. I'm in the present moment, but I'm also not just imprisoned by my own future. Certainly not my path or my past, right? Yeah. It's a really interesting concept when it comes to business, and I understand who your audience is listening to this. You know, they're entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, all commission based. Mm-hmm. You know, like here's something to ponder. Is it possible that we can get farther faster by not doing less, but doing more aligned with more belief and desire? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like external processing this out live on your show, so I apologize. But like, it's not that we don't do anything. Obviously there's work. In fact, I would subscribe that the work is possible. You got to show up. Like, you got to show up. You got to like do sales calls. You got to be connecting with new people. You got to be pushing the envelope 100,000%. And while that is necessary, it's 100% not enough. It needs to be combined with this emotional side, this faith side, this spiritual side of like belief. And regardless of what you subscribe to on a faith perspective, biblically Christian, Jude, whatever. I'm talking about like the technology of how faith works, right? Do you have the audacity to go into the future, create an intention, a goal? I don't like the word goal, an intention. Can you go into the future 6 months to a year and really start to detach from your logical brain, like detach from the brainstem, get into the spiritual mind, right? Put on some music, whatever it is, detach from logistics, just trying to pay your bills, all that stuff, and really dream and create an illogical future, something that doesn't even make sense if you were to look at it from a logical perspective. And then you create an emotion around that. Do you have the audacity to think about an intention and then actually trick your body into really getting excited about that? And then every time that fear and doubt comes into play, you surrender it because you believe with wholehearted, illogical belief that is possible. Here's what I believe. I believe when we do that, you are then opening up the door for the divine to intervene. You know what I mean? Because I know the opposite is true. The opposite is that I just succumb to fear, lack, worry, scarcity. I'm constantly running from my own shadow. Every time there's a bad bit of market news, which happens all the time, I know go into the self-sabotage. By the way, if you're in the sales world and you're operating from that posture, good luck. Good luck. And it's not that people can just smell out somebody who's desperate, like a desperate used car salesman. It's just not good energy. You're not tapping into that other side of the equation. And so for me, I'm always keeping tabs on my desire. I'm keeping tabs on my intention. I'm keeping tabs on my vision, and I'm keeping tabs yet on the surrender part, meaning I want it, I desire it, I'm going to go after it. But here's the key. Can I detach the result? Whether it happens or not, I'm cool. Case in point, this morning, true story. I was up for a big speaking engagement down in Houston, Texas, and this thing would have been like the doorway for another doorway for another doorway. And I found out this morning that that door closed and it wasn't going to work out this year. Old Jerrid would go into some self-pity thing, and now all of a sudden, like, this is stupid, and, forget them, and I don't even know if I should be doing this, and maybe I should just go back and work on TV again. You know what I mean? Like, that's how fast I can spin back into old Jerrid ways. Mm-hmm. New Jerrid says, wow, thank you, God, that I even had that opportunity. What an honor that we even had this conversation. And then I went into giving mode, like, what are some ways that I could actually give to? They just denied me, and now I'm saying, what are ways that I could then even give back to them? So a little bit later this morning, I sent the gentleman a voice text and just said, I'm just so honored that we had this conversation. I appreciate our connection. I 100% understand. I totally believe it's meant to be for now. And I said, if you need help finding another speaker, finding people that can create really great value for your people, please let me know. By the way, guys, these are little tests. These little bumps in the road, they're all like, I believe, like little divine tests. There are no coincidences. This world seems chaotic. It's not. It's a lot more orderly than what we believe, because we're only seeing a tiny micro fraction of what's happening. And most of us live in our logistical brains, right? But like, what if we looked at our life as a choreographed chess match, and if we just stood back and looked at the game that was playing, believed, detached from the outcome, completely surrendered, living in the moment? Is it possible that we can actually create opportunities? That we can create such a, and I don't like this word because it gets really, really trash in the faith, but like, can we create some sort of energy and frequency that actually opens the door for God then to release what he wants to release in our lives? That's what I believe. I believe God wants to abundantly release things into our lives, and it's not a him problem. It's the ability to receive and handle and the capacity for it. So, prayer isn't trying to convince God to give you something. Prayer and meditation and belief and certainty and all these things, surrender, actually creates a space here that is needed for me to correct maybe my container, a mindset shift, a heart posture, so then I can receive it. I just got to tell you, on personal experience, the more that I have focused on this, the more the physical opportunities open up. Call me crazy, but that's the philosophy I subscribe to.
It's 100%. I mean, you just this alone, I feel like we could talk about for forever, because I fully believe, right? And we recently were actually on your show the other way around. But one of the things that we talked about was, like, I really think that sometimes we're given opportunities because it's almost like a test of what is the future going to look like if we say yes to this, right? And do we want to go down that path? But, what does God actually say? He says that the narrow path is actually the path that we're on if we choose to follow him, which means that by design, it's harder, more storms are going to happen, and we're going to be martyred for it in most cases, right? Meaning we're going to be looked at and said, like, well, why is Michelle that way? Or why did Jerrid do that? Right? And that's not for them to understand. It's for us to know that we're morally and ethically aligned and on the trajectory that we should be on. Last year, I miscarried on November 15th, the day of the miscarriage, legit. The morning of November 15th, I get a phone call from a same kind of story, a speaking gig that I was like guaranteed to get, right? 25,
I hate those.
25, 30 people. I mean, truly, right?
Yeah.
That all worked within the same company, had all been advocating for me to be the person, the keynote at their first ever national conference for this particular company, right? All my clients from the company, the C-suite executives, the people that were running the show, but they were not in charge of the actual speakers. They were not the person in charge of choosing them. But when you have 25 people telling you, like, you're going to be getting this call, you're going to be getting this call. Okay, well, I finally get the call only because I said, hey, I haven't heard anything yet. What's going on? And he calls to tell me that he gave it to his bro, who he's been friends with for 5-6 years, and knew that once he was given the opportunity to run an event, it was going to be him. And in that moment, you're kind of like, what the heck, man? Mm-hmm. Like, and I even said to the gentleman on the phone, probably shouldn't have said it, but I said to him, I was like, really? Like, did you not hear from all of the other individuals within your organization that were pretty much begging me to be at this thing? And he's like, yeah, you should be really proud of yourself. You got a lot of really positive feedback. Everyone was very much so advocating for yourself, or for you, but, just letting you know, like, we went in this other direction. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, why, right? And in that moment, I asked myself this question. It's not what we can't do, it's what we can do. Right? So in the moment, you can't do something, meaning I wasn't going to go do this speaking gig that I thought would have been, to your point and your example, a big one, right? But if I can't do that, instead of saying, oh, I just feel defeated, I'm just going to cancel the rest of my day, I'm out. Instead, I was like, no. What can I do right now in this moment that is going to get me back on track and essentially reorient me, right? Now, for sake of time, I have a question because I'm very curious about this. And again, we could truly talk about this all the time. And I did not start this podcast thinking that we were going to talk about faith as much as we are, but I really love it. So thank you for being open.
It's a huge part of business. I mean, if you want to help, if this podcast is to help people grow their businesses, let's talk about this. This is one way to get it done. So
absolutely. And prospecting is my superpower. It's what I'm known for. It's what everyone knows. when they hear Michelle Berman-Mikel's name, they know that Michelle is a prospecting powerhouse. Her follow-up game is blah, 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 right? But what they need to know, and what I'm hearing from you, is that yes, we can be really good at those things, right? And yes, we need to be, as business owners, we need to be good at following up with opportunities. We need to be good at, to what you said, sending the voice note or sending the message after we don't get something and saying, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. If there's ever anything that comes up and you feel like I'm a good fit, please feel free to reach out to me, right? We need to do those things. But at the end of the day, the person we go to bed with at night is ourselves, right? Yes, we have our spouses laying next to us, but I have this kind of idea in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm right, but like, we want God to be smiling at us, right? At the end of every day. Like, did Michelle walk in her alignment with what God wants for her life? Did I live by the Beatitudes and the 10 Commandments today? Like, did I do what I was supposed to do to be a good human, to be a good mom, to be a good wife, to be a good friend? Did I do all of that? Because actually, I think if you do those things at the end of every day, your business, it's fail-proof.
Absolutely. Right. So again, it's more of like that feminine side, the emotional side, the spiritual side to your business, right? It's strategy plus the finesse, right? You know, I'll be very frank with you. This is like my little kind of my journal, so to speak. It's what I bust this bad boy out. I'm showing a little red book for people listening to this, but like, this is kind of my Sunday night intention, do a kind of a Sunday night meeting of myself and kind of get ready for my week. You know what I mean? But I'll write an intention on there. And so like at the very, very top, you can't read this because I can barely read it, but like it's 3 words. And this was like my mantra for the week. And it says this: I have everything. I have everything. To me, that speaks to certainty, belief, faith, whatever word you want to give it. If I truly believe that, if the people listening to this truly believe that you already have everything, not someday, remember the someday trap we talked about? Not someday when I get it, so I'm validated by my bank account or the car I drive or the house that I live in or all the shiny objects I have, but if I truly believe it, or maybe I trick my mind and my body into believing it, even though maybe my brain doesn't believe it yet. But if you truly embody this idea that I have everything, all my problems go away. I don't have problems. And that's the truth, guys. We don't have any problems. We have challenges. We have things that are here to test us. They're not here to punish us. There's a line I say from stage, the biggest challenges in our lives, and we're not talking about prospecting here, obviously, from just a contextualized model, but like the really big things like death, loss. There's no coincidences when you have a prospect that turns you down, a speaking engagement that you just thought for sure was going to happen. These are all little mini tests. Why? It is to test that phrase. Do you truly believe that you have everything? Because if you truly have everything, you cannot be offended. It is like I think the greatest superpower in the world would be to never have to take offense, because I don't have to take anything. I'm always going to be in a giving posture, right? So these little things that happen can be like little tests to really, do you truly believe, do I have everything? When I'm tempted to want to feed the beast of fear, self-pity, lack in my own spirit, my own body, my own mind at 3:00 in the morning when I may be up and fretting about my life choices and can I pull this off? I tell myself I have everything. There's nothing that I lack. That speaking engagement can't give me or take away anything. It can't add on to what I already have because I already have everything, and it can't take away anything because I already have everything. It sounds woo-woo. Like I'm hearing myself talk about this. I'm like, Jerrid, you sound like you sound cuckoo. But like, can we really take on that posture? Because when I do that, I am then completely operating from a place of wholeness, fullness, certainty. And so then when I show up to a call or a reach out or shooting an email, it's not done out of any bit of lack. I do a morning gratitude walk every single morning, and I say 4 things. I say this is the best day of my life. That's the first thing I say to myself. That keeps me grounded in today, not the future, not the past. I say to myself, Jerrid, you lack nothing. Going back to this idea that I already have everything I could possibly want. The third thing I say is Jerrid, you have no problems. We don't have any problems. You know what I mean? A lot of the problems that we have, they're just illusions. They're illusions that our mind, our logical mind has created because of the things that we see with a lack of information. They're false realities. And the fourth thing I say is, as I tell myself, I have no problems, only challenges that are designed by the divine, by God, to strategically help me grow and expand. And I will not, this is me talking, I will not sit down at my computer, because my tendency as a grinder, I'm a grinder, man. I'm like you. Like when I wake up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 6 a.m., my tendency is I want to go right to my computer. And I have learned in the last 2 years, I cannot do that. Because if I am starting to work from a place of lack, that affects my ability to create. So I must ground myself. And I'll tell you, sometimes that morning walk takes 5 minutes and I'm there. I'll tell you, in the last couple of months, sometimes that morning gratitude walk it takes 2 hours. Not that I'm walking for 2 hours, but I know I'm not at a place of fullness before I sit down. I start making those reach outs and decisions and going through my emails. Because if I start going through my email list from a place of lack and fear and scarcity and panic and reacting, what if you or I had reacted to that email where we got turned down and gave way to our flesh to just fully react? It's a disaster. You know what I mean? But can I truly posture myself as I truly have everything? Does it actually trick our own biology into actually creating it? Because the people who have a lot, it's not like they believed it before they got. It's not that they believed it after they got it. Study people that have super successful businesses. They embodied that mindset, that belief in themselves, that belief that they already had everything long before they actually had it. So I'm like, maybe that is the cheat code to break through, is to really just double down this idea that I have everything. So again, when it comes to prospecting, I don't have the strategy, you do, but my shtick is in that mental side, that spiritual side, that mindset side, that unseen side of applying the rocket fuel to the strategy. Because when I've seen those two worlds come together, bam, bam, stuff starts happening that you can't explain. Opportunities, doors open that you can't explain. And that makes life really fun and exciting when you get in that rhythm. But to me, it's a mesh of both. It's both, not just one.
It's true. I mean, it's true. I tactically though, just out of curiosity, I know I have a very super strategic, do this, do that type of a prospecting strategy. It's me, right? Like that just is who I am. But you have one. I know you do. What is it tactically for people who are listening? Because to your point, we are all commission based.
Yeah.
Most of my audience is mortgage professionals, real estate professionals, and small business owners, right? Which means every single one of you listening are most likely 100% commission based.
Yeah.
Which means, yes, we can have the best product ever or the best opportunity for someone to use us ever.
Yeah.
You still got to go find the business.
Yep. I take a page out of Alex Hormozy's book where he says, not his book physically, not his new one, but something he said where he's like, I'm pointing to my back window for people that can't see me, but I want to make sure that everybody out there knows who I am, what I stand for, and what I believe in. And so sometimes in the morning when I don't have quite the strategy you have, but sometimes when I'm considering like, what do I need to do today? What do I need to post this week? Like, I just need to make sure people know who I am. So I look at it from like a 30,000 foot view brand perspective. When it comes down to more of the tactics, you had mentioned recently, like you're reaching out to 5 people a day, like 5 conversations a day. There needs to be a DM conversation or 3 or 5 going on at all times. I've been better at really creating content via Instagram. Mostly, I live mostly on Instagram, a little bit on LinkedIn, kind of like you, where I'm not only just adding value, but I'm also making people think, asking polls, asking questions, trying to instigate those conversations. I do small group coaching along with one-on-one and also speaking. That most of my small group coaching, I've never advertised it. Where does it come from? Through DMs. It comes through people in my pipeline, people that have started to engage. I don't have quite the strategy you have, but I got to tell you, let me just tell you, if you're listening to this and you like anything that I do, if you heart a story or comment on any of my polls, you will hear from me. There will be a voice text, and that's just something that I've just picked up. My back end game is strong, I have no problem if you vote on a poll. I'll just send you like a 20-second voice text right from me, and you'd be shocked as to the response that you get from those people. They're like, oh my gosh! Not only did he respond, he sent me a voice text, and I'm not.
Like, and it was actually him.
It's actually me. It wasn't AI. It was me. And I say, hey, what's up, Michelle? Hey, I saw that you posted something about this. Tell me more about that. Like, I'm curious. Why did you say that? Or what's really going on here? Now, all right, do I close everyone as one-on-one coaching clients? Of course not. But I keep very high tabs on those conversations, and I'm getting better at not only doing the branding, the high-level stuff, but also the daily posts, more so the Instagram stories of producing and instigating conversations with people. And let's go back. Let's go back to the idea of wholeness. If you are acting from a place of fullness and you truly believe that what you have is gold and people need to get it, that should actually promote you getting out there. I work with people that are trying to build platforms, and they're all just so standoffish. You know what I mean? They're like, I don't want to post too much, and I'm like, guys, do you believe in the mission and business and platform that you're creating? Yes. I go, then your mentality is that I'm actually doing people a disservice if I'm not creating bridges for conversations, because these are people that need your help. And so, do a self-check if you're listening. Do you truly believe in your business? Do you truly believe in yourself? Where is your level of desire? Do heart checks on those all the time. And if they're less than 10, ask why and figure out why. Because if you're trying to get somebody to buy from you and you're at a 7 out of 10 belief, their default is like a 2 out of 10. So you have a 2 out of a 10 and a 7 out of 10 trying to get a 10 out of 10 offer. Well, it'll never work. You know what I mean? Like, you will never get your prospects up to your level of belief. And if your level of belief is a 10 out of 10, then you should not be holding back from this phone trying to create bridges of conversation. So my strategy, full disclosure, is not dialed in as yours, but that's my mindset as I go into each and every week and month and quarter when it comes to building my business.
I think I think you have your own way of doing it. I think, one of the things I love about what I do is that if you got anything out of even listening to me, even though you're on my show, right? Like, you're going to take something from it and it's going to be implemented in your own business. And I laughed about this when we were on your show the other way around, which was when, I said, hey, do you remember that message I sent you? Which is how we even got here in the first place. Mm-hmm. And to take that, my hope is that you can take that and do it in your own business to amplify what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. No pun intended to our friend Renee, but to just exasperate kind of it. Like, put some gas on a fire that's already going. But what you did say, and I want people to hear you again, and I'm going to repeat it, which is when someone engages with you, whether that's on a poll, whether that's on a story, whether that's somebody comments on something intentionally, what's the first thing that they get from you? Not from AI, not from a VA, not from an assistant that's supporting you, but from you, Jerrid, is they get a voice note. And guys, whether you understand this or not, that is also prospecting. Because that is you saying, I am a real person. You engaged on my content, which means I care about you now. I see you, right? And the thing I think about your content strategy that is so good is it's, again, this emotion-driven idea of, hey, if I create some emotion in somebody, they're going to want to engage, which then gives you the sort of golden brick road or yellow brick road, whatever color it was, right? So walk down it and say, I'm going to shoot my shot. And to your point, they're not always going to work. We're not going to get every lead to convert. We're certainly not going to get every sales call to convert that we have. But the reality of it is if we don't shoot the shot, there is no lead in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think I've gotten better at just not overthinking what I post. Sometimes I give myself, not always, I haven't always held to my own rule, but if I'm going to tape or record, a 1 minute reel or story, I give myself one take, maybe two, and even though that's not I could probably do that better. From years of doing in TV, the more I try to record something, the worse it gets. It's always the first take is always the best one.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I remembered that. So I'm if I don't post this and I try to do it again, it's probably going to get worse. And I could be out here for 5 minutes or for 20 minutes trying to record a 30-second, Facebook story or something like that. So yeah, I mean, just get in the game. Remember, authenticity That is the highest level of connection. Really, that's what you're doing. This is you think that you're in a commission based field, which you are, but the real like collateral is connection. How do you do that? Authenticity. So just be super real. That's one thing. That's just the way I'm wired. I've just never had a problem with that. I think that's why TV weather was actually a really good fit for me, because I would go in front of people and just be like, listen, we really blew it yesterday. Like, we thought we were going to get 10 inches of snow. As you know, we got 0, and everybody canceled plan. And I would just make fun of myself, not in a self-deprecating, like, lack way, but just as a fun way. And people love that. They love that. And so I would just challenge people too to really be authentic, not overthink. Don't overthink strategy, but just don't overthink the content. But again, let's rewind the tape. For you to be really authentic and let that authentic self come through, I want to make sure that you are operating from fullness, from wholeness. So that inner work, not just the strategy, the inner work, you need to put a lot of time in that as well. Again, this is me talking. I probably spend, no kidding, just as much time on the inner work as I do the outer work in my business. Not because I'm better than anybody, but for me, where I'm in my business, my mindset, my trajectory, what I need to grow, that needs a lot of attention. So, but the more grounded I am and full I am, the more that authenticity shines through, and then the more connection shines through as well. So we cannot ignore either one of these sides of this coin. They're both and.
Yeah, both and is a perfect way of saying that. And I think when I don't have the fullness that you're talking about, I can tell in my energy. I can tell in how I send messages. I can tell in how I sit at my computer and look at my email. Like, it's a physical reaction to a lack of. Bingo. Right? And I think it's even like the sales breath concept when you're on calls. I don't think I really ever have it, but I can tell when I'm getting tired and need to take a break, right? Because I can feel it when I'm in a conversation. I'm a little bit snarky, maybe. I'm a little bit fast to react to certain statements that are made. I'm a naturally very defensive person. That's my personality. Love it or hate it. I sometimes hate it, most of the time. But the reality is that's who I am. And so when I feel that bubbling, to me, it's a very fast sign of, whoa, hold on, Michelle needs a second, right? Which is why, frankly, I started the 80-day Bible thing in the morning. So the very first thing I do in the morning is I make my cup of coffee. By the way, I'm an espresso person now. If you do not have an espresso, you are missing out on life. I've been drinking regular coffee for decades, and now that I have an espresso, I will never go back, ever. That's all I gotta say to that. But first thing I do is make a cup of coffee, and I go upstairs, and what I used to do is immediately sit down at my computer like you were talking about, and I realized that it came from this place of, oh shit, I have so much to do, I have to hurry up and get to it.
Reacting. Go ahead.
Correct.
No.
And the defense mode of like, I'm on the, like, hold on, I'm in control, but really no, right? So what I've noticed is that when I take the 20 minutes to read the Bible, read whatever the day plan is for that, look at whatever the verse of the day is, and then actually, here's my unlock, is I then read 15 pages of a personal book that has nothing to do with work, right? And so for me, I'm reading Court of Thorns of Roses, for anybody who's ever read the series, right? I'm in the middle of the 3rd book, and people will be like, you read, like, fiction in the morning? Like, you're not reading, like, a self-help book? And I'm like, no, I purposely don't for those 15 to 20 pages, because what happens for me is it's an emotional disconnect from reality for a very short amount of time that allows me to sit at my computer at 5 o'clock and I am all, like, no holds back, like I am a savage at 5 in the morning, right? And I think for me, it's that clarity and that fullness. I'm going to use your word, but it's that fullness of, like, Michelle is Michelle right now. Let's go be.
Absolutely.
And it makes for a much more successful just day in general. But we could talk about this. We could talk about this forever.
Just really quick. It's modeled. There's a biblical Sabbath. God does say, like, grind it out 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Grinders and entrepreneurs, we have ourselves convinced the more that I work, the more successful I am. And I'm preaching to the choir here, but, like, lots of times the more that I reconnect, the faster I can get. And that's modeled. Yeah. That's biblical, right? And so that's hard for grinders. But so again, whatever, is it a morning gratitude walk, morning devotional, whatever? That's not the point. It's, can we always be acting from a place of fullness, understanding I have everything I need nothing else. And so I can just show up in the world authentically me in a purely giving posture. And if you do that, your businesses will grow. Bottom line.
100%. 100%. Jerrid, for sake of time, I want to wrap us up by asking you a good question that I think a lot of people, hopefully 49 minutes into this time with you, will want to know, right? But one, how do we get connected to you, Jerrid, whether that's online, website, whatever it is. But most importantly, my favorite question is, what do you have coming up soon that someone could get dialed into if they are not already?
I appreciate the question. Yeah, JerridSebesta.com, just my name.com, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Love Instagram. That's probably my go-to handle, is at Jerrid Sebesta. Go to my website, got tons of free resources on there, a couple of free master classes, click and watch. So like no forms or nothing, just a click and watch. There's one on there called How to Stop Playing Small. Highly recommend you go watch that, because we talk about these different pieces of the puzzle. I think that, again, our lives are more choreographed than we know, but we also have more power than we're led to believe as well. So how do you understand this technology of your life? And I explain that. What do I have coming up? I'm really excited to be throwing my first live event this fall. And so as of the recording of this podcast, I'm in the stages of making some decisions on dates, but I would love for you to connect with me, and I'm going to throw my first live event, one of many, hopefully, a signature Life Undeferred event. Want to revolve it around this idea of finding breakthrough. It'll be in Minneapolis, this first one, but hopefully more to come. But I'm really excited about that. I am really excited about that. Not about, look at me, I'm putting on an event. I just love helping people. I love getting like-minded people together. I get energy off of that. And again, this work that you and I are doing, and everybody here, where you're really trying to help people, like this is me being me. And I've gotten in the habit of saying this every time I do a speaking engagement. I've got one tomorrow, and I'll say it tomorrow. If I knew I was going to die tomorrow, the day after, I would still be doing this, because this is me showing up most me. Some people, if they knew they were going to die next week, they'd start traveling the world. I would still be like showing up, trying to help people see truth for their life that they didn't see before. So that resonates with you, go check me out, follow me, would love to connect, and maybe see you in Minneapolis this fall.
I love it. Hopefully it's not in the winter, though, because it's a little cold,
I do this close to my birthday. I have a mid-November birthday, and the weather could be 50, 60, or it could be, the other way. So we'll see.
Well, I appreciate you, Jerrid. Thank you for being on the show. And for everybody listening, if you enjoy Jerrid, which as much as I do, I hope you do as well, but please go connect with him on social. Tell him you heard us on the show. Let him know. It's always fun when I get the messages of, hey, I heard you on so-and-so show, especially when I'm on someone else's show too. That's like the coolest message that we as hosts could ever get.
Absolutely.
So please let us know. And most importantly, of course, subscribe to us if you're listening to it on YouTube. And if you have any recommendations for amazing guests that I need to interview moving forward, please let me know. But Jerrid, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.